Call to order. My name is Michael Williams. I am the chair for the Qualifications Committee. Today is Wednesday, October 25th, 2023. So I will say the mission statement. Excuse me. The CBA has provided the opportunity for the public to participate via the WebEx platform. When we take public comments, we will begin by taking public comment from those individuals attending the meeting of the CBA at the CPA headquarters. I will then ask the moderator to open up the lines for public comment. You will be allotted up to 5 minutes for public comment. And I will turn the meeting over to CBA staff to take quorum.
Thank you. Sorry, Christopher Smith.
Here.
Jeffrey Moline.
Here.
Hanjiao Meng. Here. Angela Honzik. Here. Jeffrey Baginski.
Here.
Timothy Jones.
Here.
Michael Williams.
Here.
We have a quorum.
I'm going to read the mission statement. The CBA mission is to protect consumers by ensuring only qualified licensees practice public accountancy in accordance with established professional standards. This mission is derived from the statutory requirement that protection of the public shall be the highest priority for the California Board of Accountancy in exercising its licensee regulatory and disciplinary functions. Whenever the protection of the public is inconsistent with other interests sought to be promoted, the protection of the public shall be paramount. I would like to welcome our newest member, Christopher Smith. Welcome, thank you. And now we will go, do we go to public comments? Okay. Let's see. So public comments for items not on the agenda. Is anyone here in Sacramento like to make any public comments? There is no members of the public here. Moderator, can you open up the to the participants, attendees, if any?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I've opened up the Q&A panel. If any member of the public would like to comment, please type comment using the field in the lower right-hand corner of your screen, or you may simply raise your hand. If you've called into the meeting, press *3 to raise your hand. We are displaying instructions and we'll give you a moment. All right, I see no requests for comment at this time. Shall I close the Q&A panel?
Yes, please, thank you.
You're welcome.
Yes. Now I am going to, we are going to take a look at the minutes, and I'm looking for an approval of the minutes.
After reviewing the minutes, I move to approve.
Do we have a second?
I second.
Is there any discussion from the members? Seeing none, we will take vote count. Public. Oh, public comment. Excuse me, we'll take public comment. You can tell I only do this once a quarter. And seeing there are no public attendees here in Sacramento. So moderator, please open up for public comment.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I've opened up the Q&A panel. If any member of the public would like to comment, please type comment using the field in the lower right-hand corner of the screen, or simply raise your hand. We'll give you a moment. All right, I'm not seeing any requests for public comment, but our webcaster did indicate that he needs to restart his computer, so we should probably pause just a moment until he can rejoin the meeting.
Okay, thank you. We will wait.
This is the moderator. We are still waiting for the webcaster to get reconnected, but I do see no comments for from the public. Would you like me to close the Q&A panel?
Yes, please. Thank you.
Okay, you're welcome.
So,
Moderator, this is Michelle Center. You're recording this meeting, correct?
That is correct.
And we're still waiting on the moderator, but there are no public comments.
We're still waiting on the webcaster, and there are no public comments, correct?
I think we can go ahead and take the vote, and then we will pause again before we present the next item, and then you can give us an update on whether the webcast is up again.
okay, Ms. Suddy, will you take the vote?
Jeffrey Moline?
Approve.
Christopher Smith?
I guess I do have a question, as I was not present. I assume I would pass on.
You can abstain, but just for clarification purposes, it is not required that you abstain if you have watched the meeting or some other mechanism, but you have the right to abstain.
I'll abstain. Thank you.
Michael Williams?
Approve.
Timothy Jones?
Approve.
Jeffrey Baginski?
Abstain.
Angela Honzik? Approve. And Hanja Meng? Approve. The motion carries.
Thank you. And we're going to hold now? Is that moderator, have we established the WebEx?
So the webcaster has rejoined us. We just need to test to make sure that he can hear sound. Yes, he says that we're back up, so please continue.
Thank you. And just getting away from the agenda, I wanted to introduce Katrina Salazar. She is the CBA chair, and she's joining us today. And I don't know if anyone's had a chance to meet her, but I've met her a number of times and watched her, and she does a great job up here. So I can't emulate you, but thanks for joining us. And if you get a chance, say hello when you today on break. So we are going to number 3. Oh, okay. I was thinking this was somebody from, okay, I apologize. So Katrina, please, has a presentation for us.
Oh, thank you so much. I really appreciate that. And as you have noticed, I am not your regular liaison, board member Lata, but thank you for welcoming me here today and allowing me to sit here with staff. My role here as a liaison, as a representative of the Board of Accountancy, is really to just provide that connection to our board, to update you with what some of the recent board actions have been. In this case, we actually have 2 meetings to report upon, but I want to stop before we do that and just say thank you for being here. It's wonderful to meet board members that I haven't seen, there are committee members that I haven't met before, and there are some that I'm very familiar with the names, but yet I never get to see. So this is a delightful opportunity. So thank you for all of your contributions on behalf of myself and the Board of Accountancy. There is a great deal of appreciation for what you are doing when you take the time out of your day to participate in this committee. So thank you. So I mentioned we've had a couple board meetings since your last presentation from a liaison, and the first one was our July meeting. So we had a 2-day meeting at the end of July this year, and there were a few notable items to just share with you. So we continued our discussion about the board's disciplinary guidelines and model orders, and so that continued. There were some non-substantive changes. We always make those, right? Those are good things. There's some new regulatory language to add NASBA's Center for Public Trust ethical leadership training as a possible standard in terms of condition for probation. There's some updated language for the rehabilitation evidence section that provides guidance to individuals that might petition the Board of Accountancy for a reduction of penalty associated with reducing costs for administrative penalties. So please note that there are some changes in that document that are coming down the conversation. There's also a regulatory item that the board took up, which was approval of a regulatory text to add some new regulations describing the procedure for reinstating surrendered licenses. So hopefully that will not be of interest to anyone in this room, but do be aware that that is has moved forward. And then staff also provided a proposed plan to allow the Peer Review Oversight Committee, one of the other advisory committees that the board has, and the CBA staff when it provides its annual site visit for some temporary procedures in conducting that process. So again, I think that is useful information in our longer term plan as a board with peer review oversight. So those were sort of the highlights from our July meeting. Any questions about those items that I can adroitly defer to staff to answer? Okay. So our September meeting was our most recent one that we had. This one was really exciting because it was the first time we met outside of this board location in I think almost 4 years. So that was held at the campus of Cal Poly Pomona, and we did a lot of really important things there. But I think the most exciting was that we were able to meet with students, we were able to meet with administrators. It was a really exciting experience. To sort of add a different opportunity for the profession. So I'm personally really excited about those, and hopefully we will be able to continue those going forward in future years. Our meeting, of course, was impactful. We talked about Sunset Review Report. So in case you aren't familiar, there is a process our board goes through every so many years to report to the legislature. And so we are slated to complete our report in January. So it's been an ongoing item. There are drafts out there. If you have any questions, you're going to see information about your own committee's activities. It's kind of great. So we will be submitting that in early January, and that work continued. It will be an agenda item, I'm sure, at our November meeting, sort of one last look at it. The board also approved modified regulatory language regarding the sale, transfer, or discontinuance of a licensee's practice, and this has been noticed for public comment. I am also want to mention that both Chair Williams and Vice Chair Jones, not to be missed, participated in outreach events. And I think that is sort of another exciting opportunity that happens when we're able to meet on a campus and have a more expansive meeting. And so would either of you, I guess I want to pause what I'm saying and invite any comment from either of you about that experience.
I'd love to. Couple of observations. First of all, thank you for board and staff for allowing the opportunity to go down and engage with thousands of students to some degree, indirectly, but many, if not hundreds, directly. Just for context, Cal Poly Pomona is about 30,000 students. And what I learned when I was on campus was that in their business program, the accounting concentration is the largest of their business programs, and that there are about 700 undergrad and graduate students that are currently enrolled down there. In terms of the event, there were a number of things happening. There was the Board of Accountancy meeting, which was a newer endeavor down there. And then there were outreach events afterwards that included board and staff presenting to students. It was just an open sort of opportunity for students to just come in and learn more about the Board of Accountancy and what they do, and about the role of the Board of Accountancy. There was a meet and greet afterwards, which was mingling between board staff and volunteers like myself and students. And it was very organic, and really they drove that meeting and interaction. And then I think what was particularly helpful was that there were staff down there, CBA staff, that were doing transcript reviews. And some of the outcomes I heard were, hey, it was super helpful, that some students met requirements without actually knowing it, and that others didn't, but they knew exactly what they needed to do in order to meet those requirements. And then in terms of events, I personally was invited to into a classroom that was full of undergrad and graduate audit students, and it was intended to be a 15-minute engagement. It ended being an hour and 15 minutes. And here's some takeaways from that, just some observations that I think are important to think about in terms of the interaction with the students, and then just sort of some observations and takeaways that that I was thinking about afterwards. And that is, from the student perspective, that it's difficult to translate the school, so in this case Cal Poly Pomona, but this is a broader view, to translate the school's courses with CPA education requirements. Okay, what meets ethics, what meets this, what meets X and Y? So there's that crosswalk, and it's difficult it's difficult to translate that. Again, from the student perspective, many do not understand the specific experience requirements for the G and A licenses. That turned into a really big topic, and here's some of the observations. What credentials does the signer need to sign off on my experience, whether it's A or G? What constitutes qualifying hours? What pathway, G or A, is best for me, the student? And then lastly, choosing employment that will provide the needed experience. So, I mean, that's a subset. There were lots of other questions, but I think that gives you a flavor of where students, and these were senior undergraduates, and they were graduate students, and that's where they were at with the process. So it begs the question, like, what are some takeaways in regards to that? I think more outreach with students is important to consider and to develop from the CBA side. I think it was a big success down there. I think that regional events with a focus on licensure, so we were in a school, maybe we can do a bigger outreach event that incorporates, you know, people that are already in the trade, people that are beyond school, people that are in mid-career that are thinking about CPA licenses, but opening up the opportunity to engage with people that are interested in the profession, knowing that there's a shortage of qualified CPAs in the state, but an opportunity to engage on a broader scale. A streamlined or simplified roadmap for success, like I think of a one-page, like, I'm a student and how do I get from here to here? Like just a big picture idea. Maybe lobbying for consistency or alignment between education requirements and course titles, so that there's a clearer connection between the requirements and the courses. And of course, that's a big discussion, but just the idea of more alignment there. And then the idea of developing professional champions located throughout the state that volunteer to assist students or candidates as they navigate the process. But the idea is to have advocates for the profession that are experienced not only in the trade, but experienced in the process, that can be a liaison between the student or the employee that is interested in taking the next step and doesn't really know how to get there. That's a really long-winded response, but I wanted to make sure that you understood in a day's time, in a few hours on campus, that there was a lot to be learned.
If the chair would indulge me maybe responding before you have shared your comments about the experience that time. I would just say, first of all, staff is taking notes of all of those things that you shared, so thank you. The board it wasn't in my sort of points, but the board is working on a program called Sure CPA, which is really a multi-year program, which is designed to really get input from people, figure out where the confusion is, what makes sense, what doesn't make sense, with the goal of streamlining it, making it an easier process, and helping people understand. And I think it will address many of those questions. I mean, that's my hope. So what you are saying really does validate the fact that it is a timely activity, but it's going to be going on for a while. So look for Sure CPA. There will be some asks for input that will go to various stakeholders. So I just want to make sure that name is kind of in the back of your mind. So when you see it, you connect it to how do we make that process clearer and more understandable. So yeah, any efforts towards that are much appreciated. And then, of course, I want to kick it back to the chair.
Thank you. I just, it was interesting because I spoke with students, and you know, their view of the accounting profession is an auditor or a tax person, right? And I was thinking, you know, that's what I thought too when I was in college, right? I didn't know, but I was telling you know, I've been in internal audit, I've been in external audit, and financial reporting. There's just a lot out there for CPAs, and I think that we also have to have that awareness that it's not just an auditor or a tax person, right? There's just a lot more that CPA has a value in many different areas, you know, within business. So, but it was nice to be with the students, and I think they appreciated it. You could tell they were like, wow, this is cool. So.
What I would share is, you may not know, this is my second term as president of the Board of Accountancy. The first time was, I think, in 2016. Maybe it was a while ago. But one of the things I was really excited about was outreach, and that initiative way back then still continues. So you guys have participated in outreach. I would share with the committee members, if you have a passion or an interest in outreach, as a committee member, please reach out to Ms. Center and let them know you have an interest, because our board staff is trying to engage with multiple campuses, different students, different populations. So I do want to say that this one meeting is a fantastic opportunity, but it is sort of the tip of the iceberg. And so if you have an interest and a passion, please share that. And I am certain that the staff will work to find ways to kind of allow that opportunity for you when we have other events. And again, our staff cannot be everywhere, so your interest might be the thing that allows a new contact to a different group of students, you know, because it is really incumbent upon us, I think, to sort of help inspire the next generation of accountants, because accounting is a great profession, and I don't think people tell the students that. So, you know, it's always good to participate where you can. So with that, I do want to be respectful of your agenda. I will share that our next Board of Accountancy meeting is coming up in less than a month, so it will be held here in the Sacramento location, and the dates are November 16th and 17th. So again, as committee members, if you are around, you know, you're welcome to come visit. If you are able to follow us online, we welcome your participation, but ultimately really just appreciate what you're doing here. So I don't know if there are any additional questions, and with that, I'd be happy to answer any that you might have thought of, but I would like to turn it back over to the chair and say thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Salazar. Any questions? Well, thank you for the presentation. I appreciate it. I would just add that when, you know, staff, when we're doing outreach and these type of things, if there's something in your area that you could go attend, right, and be part of, that'd be great. Just take a couple hours or whatever. Like, for example, if it's in another college or somewhere and it's in your area, it's very interesting. It's very enlightening, and you feel good about it. So if you get that chance, thank you. So we will go to agenda item number. Pardon me? Oh, yes. Public comment. There is no one in the public here in Sacramento, so I'm opening it up. Moderator, open up for public comment, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I have opened up the Q&A panel. If any member of the public would like to comment, please type comment using the field in the lower right-hand corner of your screen, or simply raise your hand. We're displaying instructions and we'll give you a moment. All right, I see no requests for comment. Shall I close the Q&A panel?
Yes, moderator, thank you.
Okay.
Okay, we'll go to agenda item number 4, and the first presentation will be from Jennifer Huddy on licensing activity report.
Thank you, Chair Williams. My name is Jennifer Huddy, and I'm the manager of the initial licensing unit. This licensing activity report, or LAR, covers all of fiscal year 2022 through 23. The LAR begins with the reporting of processing times. Processing times were below 30 days on June 30th, 2023. The initial licensing unit was briefly processing at 34 days after June 30th as staff caught up after the network migration, but the processing times have since returned to under 30 days. Now, if you turn your attention to page 2 of the LAR, There were over 104,000 stakeholder inquiries in the form of email and telephone calls. This is inclusive of CBA calls directed to the DCA call center. The decline in emails is likely attributed to the renewals unit receiving applications through CBA Connect, which were previously sent by email. On to pages 3 and 4. As of June 30th, the examinations unit has approved 4,755 first-time applicants to sit for the CPA exam. The initial licensing unit has approved over 3,000 applications for CPAs and firms. On pages 5 through 7, you will see data related to renewal statistics, where renewal deficiencies and continuing education audits are displayed. Table 7 includes CE audit data. 903 licensees were selected for an audit in fiscal year 22-23. Of those, 684 were found to be compliant. 120 are still in process. Table 8 includes population data. As of June 30th, the CBA had a grand total of 114,985 licenses and registrations. This is a slight decline since May 30th, 2023. The total active number of CPA and PA licensees, as well as firms, has grown slightly. However, the number of inactive, delinquent, and retired licensees has decreased. That concludes my presentation, and I will now turn it back over to Chair Williams. I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Ms. Huddy. Are there any questions from the board members? Seeing none, I would open it up to, there is no one in the Sacramento area. So moderator, can you open up to the public?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I've opened up the Q&A panel. If any member of the public would like to comment, please type comment using the field in the lower right-hand corner of your screen, or simply raise your hand. We'll give you a moment. All right, I see no request for comment. Shall I close the Q&A panel?
Yes, moderator, thank you.
Okay.
The next agenda item will be a report on the Qualifications Committee subcommittee meeting, and Ms. Huddy will present that as well.
Thank you, Chair Williams. The purpose of this agenda item is to provide an update to the QC on subcommittee activities that have taken place since the July 2023 QC meeting. On September 28, 2023, the QC held a subcommittee meeting to conduct interviews per California Code of Regulations, Section 69, specifically for the following 2 reasons. Oh, I'm sorry, satisfactorily answered certification of experience submitted to the CBA, but the period of experience appears to be unduly short, and the failure or refusal by any licensee to complete and submit a certification of experience. 4 applicants were recommended for approval of a CPA license. This concludes my report. At this time, I will turn it back to Chair Williams, and we'll be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you. Are there any questions from the committee? Seeing none, and no one being in Sacramento for the public, moderator, please open up to public comment.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I've opened up the Q&A panel. If any member of the public would like to comment, please type comment using the field in the lower right-hand corner of your screen, or simply raise your hand. We'll give you a moment. All right, I see no request for comment. Shall I close the Q&A panel?
Yes, moderator, thank you.
Oh, you're welcome.
We have agenda item 4C, discussion on a possible pathway for firm owners to obtain a test authority, and Ms. Benedict will be presenting that.
Thank you, Chair Williams. My name is Sarah Benedict, and I am the manager of the Renewal and Continuing Competency Unit. The purpose of this agenda item is to provide the QC with an opportunity to review and discuss a possible pathway for CPA firm owners who are licensed with general accounting experience to gain the experience necessary to convert their license to one with the authority to sign reports on a test engagement. Please note that this is a high-level overview of the pathway and does not include all of the details. The pathway will be presented to the CBA at their November meeting. If the CBA approves the proposed pathway, staff will begin to work on specific details for inclusion in a regulatory package. The CBA's consideration of the Certified Public Accountant Experience Requirement Task Force, or CERT for short, was tasked with answering the question, is the present attest experience requirement necessary and sufficient to support the CBA's mission to protect consumers by ensuring only qualified licensees practice public accountancy in accordance with professional standards? In November of 2022, CERT informed the CBA that they found the attest experience requirement to be necessary and recommended that the CBA keep the attest experience requirement. Additionally, the CERT recommended that staff explore a pathway to allow accounting firm owners with general authority to obtain the attest experience required for the ability to sign reports on attest engagements. Under the current law, a pathway for firm owners to convert their license to one with attest authority is not available because firm owners do not have a supervisor to review and evaluate the firm owner's work and complete the certificate of attest experience. The CBA provided staff guidance on the pathway, which is listed on page 2 of the agenda item. Staff sought input and guidance from Nasi Raisan, CPA, Enforcement Advisory Committee member and former QC member, and Michael Williams, CPA and QC Chair, in the development of the proposed solution. I want to extend my appreciation for the time and effort for both Ms. Raisan and Chair Williams. Staff also sought input from Cal CPA, a CPA liability insurance provider, and NASPA. The proposed pathway would require the firm owner to enter into a written agreement, such as an engagement letter, with a third-party attest monitor that would allow the monitor to serve in a role like that of a supervisor. Additionally, the pathway would require the firm owner and the monitor to appear before the QC prior to granting the license conversion. Specific requirements for the firm owner, the monitor, and the engagement letter are detailed on pages 3 and 4 of the agenda item. To close, staff intend to present the proposed pathway to CBA at its November meeting and, upon CBA approval, draft regulatory language. Staff welcome any feedback members may have. Feedback specific to the proposed pathway will be shared with the CBA in November. Feedback more relevant to the drafting of regulatory language will be utilized by staff later in the process. That concludes my presentation. I will now turn it over to Chair Williams, and I am happy to answer any questions that members may have.
Thank you. I think I'd like to turn over to Michelle to kind of give an overview of what's been going on. She's been kind of running this, and I know this is new to many of the members.
Sure. Way to surprise me there, Chair. So when we had the task force to identify some reestablish, I guess, that we wanted to keep our license types of general and attest, this topic came up of individuals that did not have this pathway to earn their attest authority. And we looked at that broadly, and I'm going to be honest, I think we struggled a little bit thinking about how are we going to create that pathway while also ensuring that we are adhering to our mission of protection of the public, right? That was a struggle. And I think in our meetings, at least I thought of it kind of as a light bulb above our heads when we were meeting with Michael and Nasi, and it came to us that one way we could do that is really try and limit that population, at least at first, to only those firm owners who employ someone who does have attest authority. So that was kind of the big aha moment, I think, in our conversations. Would you agree? And once that aha moment, like, oh, there is a pathway, maybe not for everyone yet, okay, but for this subgroup of firm owners that do not have attest authority, we then were on a roll, I think. Then we were on a roll, like, okay, we can now establish a structure for this. But in the back of our minds, as we were really establishing this structure, which is really based on this engagement and really mirrors the structure of what already exists in terms of the supervisory relationship, it mirrors that, even though it does not have that supervisor title. I think in the back of our minds, we also had a couple lingering questions. One was, during our task force meeting, there was a question about liability that came up. And that was something that was really on our minds. And so I'm going to kind of lean over a little bit to make sure I get this correct. But we did reach out to a liability insurance provider and asked for some input. And we were really happy with the response, because they basically said that this arrangement, this engagement letter, would fall within the typical scope of other engagement letters, and they did not see it as adding any additional risk that is different from other engagements that two firms might be entering into already. So that eased our anxiety a little bit, but we still had another anxiety that I think is still out there, and I'd really like to hear from some of you, which is, are we building something, like we're planning a party and no one shows up, kind of thing. And so we know that there are firm owners that want to convert their licenses. We know that because we hear from them, and they are very frustrated when we have to tell them there really isn't a mechanism for you unless you want to go get employed by someone else. And that really, I know of no one that has taken us up on that offer. So we know that there are individuals on that side, but we are still, I think, wondering and wanting to hear that there would be firms, there would be individuals that would be interested in playing that monitor role. So I think that's one thing I would really like to hear from all of you. We did ask Cal CPA to take this to other individuals, and there wasn't any, are you crazy? No way, we already have so much on our plate. But I also wouldn't say it's like, oh yay, we didn't hear that either. So I think that's, in terms of the overall structure, I think that's the part of it where I would really like to hear from you. Like, that's something I can see my firm doing. That's something I can see someone volunteering within my firm to want to be a monitor and provide this opportunity for firm owners. So can we start there, Chair?
Absolutely. Can I raise my hand first?
Yeah.
And so I was just thinking about this now. I'm in industry, so it's not something that I would do, and I didn't really think about that. This kind of narrows down to people that are in public accounting, right? So that kind of narrows or reduces the amount of people or firms that would do that. So I never really thought about that. So thank you for bringing that up. But I'd like to hear any comments from members.
I'll go as the new guy. I maybe have a series of questions to ask. So, because I did find this interesting, and I immediately went to the liability aspect from a monitor perspective, and I'm recently retired from the profession, and I thought about liability and risk. But what was the initial thing that we were trying to solve here? Well, and I even step back. When we say attest in this capacity, truly attest engagements, not talking about audits, or is audits being brought under the attest umbrella? Okay, so it's not just I'm in the attest portion of the literature. I'm okay. Then
I should verbally say something for the record. When we said attest, we were really referring to the license type where we use the term attest authority.
Yeah, okay. So as I read this monitor, and I was thinking, would I actually do it? Several questions, and would I be protected? What wasn't clear to me is, would I be monitoring the practice itself and how they do attest engagements, or were you thinking that this might be on specific individual engagements and the monitor would watch the conduct of those?
It really does mirror, the idea does mirror a supervisor role. So it would be specific. The other thing, just to clarify if it isn't clear, that the actual signing of the audit, am I using that term correct, Michael, is done by the firm that has the G license. And that is why we made sure that they have someone on staff that has that authority to do that signature. So it is not the monitor that is signing that audit report.
But they may not, the firm itself would not have the authority to sign the audit report unless the monitor said, looks good.
I think that's a very good question. I think that also goes into another question that came up about, would the monitor be part of the engagement team?
Yeah, that's
right?
the next question, yeah.
And I think that is, we did hear from our other individual that assisted Nasi, who believes that that is something that, and I think it was implied in what we wrote here, but it wasn't explicitly stated. But it was implied by the wording about how it is similar to a supervisor role, and that you do need access to the data, to the information that is actually being worked on day to day. But yeah, I do believe that that is something that we would want to clarify in regulatory language.
Yeah, so and I'll yield in a second. My thing would be just go back. So engagement team is a defined term, kind of broad in its concept. This kind of starts sounding to me like, you know, maybe that person would be part of the engagement team, which then does open it, you know, the person up to professional responsibilities and all the stuff that comes with that, including the liability. But having said that, I would think if properly constructed here, you would find firms or individuals that would be willing to sign one of these engagement letters, perform these activities. So I was originally thinking you might not find people that would be interested in it, but I think under the right circumstances, there's enough people out there that would be willing to do it.
Thank you. I also want to point out that we did add the requirement that they would be automatically referred to QC. Just as another check that we did feel that the monitor was independent in their judgment when they signed whatever experience form we have them sign. And so it would automatically be in appearance before the QC to ask any questions that we might have to make us feel comfortable that there wasn't, that everything was above board in the relationship.
So QC would approve them as the monitor prior, or
sorry,
once
no,
done,
once it is done and they apply for the conversion.
Yeah, and I think it's that's a way you're monitoring all this, right? You're actually, then the engagement lead who signed off would come in with the individual who did the test work, and so I think that before the engagement lead would sign off, they would make sure that work was done and this individual was capable.
I think we also want to make sure that we are writing this in a way that retired individuals that have an active license are able to be monitors, because I think that might be a population of individuals that would be interested in this, because they might have the time to do that, and it is a little more controlled in terms of the time. It's a project that might last a year or two, and then they can go back to playing golf or whatever they were doing in their retirement. So I think that we also want to make sure that we are writing this in such a way that those individuals that have that experience might be able to fulfill that role. I also want to say that these are going to be very, very technical regulations that, you know, it's obvious probably already from my speaking, I do not have the skill set to write. So we will be relying on individuals such as you all to help us fashion these very technical regulations to make sure that we are conveying what we mean to say, assuming the board is interested in this particular proposal. So I want to, if available, continue on with the conversation. You know how sometimes I get, you know, like those school teachers that start calling on people. I know you guys hate it, but I love it because you actually say great things. So are you sure that there aren't other pieces of feedback, even if you want to agree with anything that Member Smith said? I'd really like to hear from others about the concept.
I have just a couple thoughts. I'm not sure what all the requirements are outside of the state of California and how other boards of accountancy arrange their licenses, but I wonder if there's other states out there that have had similar circumstances.
We are very unique in having these two different authorities with our license. So unfortunately, there really isn't another state for us to look to as an example.
Could Member Smith ask another question? I love that term. So is the monitor at the conclusion of their work, someone has to get 500 hours of a test work to get this other type. Is that focused on the individual or the firm?
It is focused on the individual.
On an individual and
yes.
firm. Okay.
Right. And so I think that's part of this relationship. This firm owner will have someone on their staff that does have the attest experience and that designation with their license. And if we are not seeing, if the monitor is not seeing active involvement from the firm owner, they're not going to get those 500 hours, right? So it is going to be tricky, interesting, to see the firm owner act in that capacity, which may be a little different than the role they typically play in their firm as the firm owner.
Okay, I'm not normally like this, trust me. So, but how does this work? Someone needs to get this new level of license to be able to sign off on someone's ability to become, okay. Doesn't that person have to already have the authority to sign off on a test report?
The monitor does, and the firm owner that does not have authority must employ someone who does. So there has to be two individuals with that authority.
Okay, then all I would say, just coming back around to our prior conversation, it does sound to me like that monitor then would probably start looking and feeling more like a member of the engagement team. Yes. Okay, which then, yeah, probably people have to think through.
Does being a member of the engagement team make it seem more palatable or more interesting as an option, do you think, for individuals, or not?
My own personal view is it just, and I will say when I read this last night or this morning, whichever the case may be, I was thinking one thing, that this monitor was a person further removed from the engagement team, and you might find retired people that just, hey, I believe in the sanctity of quality and the profession, and I don't mind looking at how an audit was planned, supervised, reviewed to get, but someone inside the firm would be taking on all that other responsibility. This now sounds like this person would be inside making or blessing key decisions so therefore the monitor, the real question might be to them, are they comfortable kind of coming inside of whichever firm it is and functioning really like a partner or employee of that firm as opposed to this independent monitor.
Right.
So maybe the term might, yeah.
We might want to change the label.
Just think about it.
I think that also, we talked about what could they review? And I think without it being in real time, it's really hard to know what part that firm owner played. And I think that's what got us to this point, is we needed to know that firm owner was playing the part that got them the experience that they need in order for someone to fill out that experience form. And if it's done after the fact, it's a little more difficult to tease out what their staff did versus the owner. At least that's the logic that was used.
Okay, one last thing, and then so it seemed to me, based on a memory I had, that when this situation, which I think I understand what the situation is, was presented 5-10 years ago, the applicant or whoever was trying to get the required duties or whatever would actually, instead of trying to do it within the firm would enter into relationships with other firms, almost like staff sharing. Hey, can my junior person? Is that, we're now trying to turn that around so that instead of a firm looking for experiences outside of the firm where its potential applicants can get the experience, they can stay inside the firm and work on qualifying engagements, because the other model doesn't work. Is that what the
other model, it does not exist, that model that you talked about for firm owners, unless they really did go into that, right, other firm. I saw you smile, so I thought there was a question. So there's a lot of conversation between two of us. And I'm still not getting a sense of this conversation is really in the weeds, like stuff we need to think about and consider as we continue, or are we hearing feedback that makes us think we should pause and make sure we're on the right track? And so that's where I am.
I think there's a lot to consider, and I think Chris brought up some good observations. But I think that the quote unquote monitor becomes the engagement partner. And in that capacity, that becomes part of a legal document that, if you will, attests that this monitor has all the qualifications to not only complete an audit, but there is some implied institutional knowledge that comes with that they understand the software, they understand the processes, they're effectively attesting to the firm in addition to the individual. And I think that becomes legally complicated. Indemnification could become a little more complicated, although what I'm hearing is an employee relationship. But even at that, I think it's going to be burdensome to some degree to bring on, say you bring on a guy like Chris that's retired. Like there's some onboarding that goes with that, and that expense needs to be the burden. The burden would be on the client, and it's a once and done thing. It's like, we need you for a few, 50 hours, 150 hours, whatever it is, and then we're done. That's a very expensive endeavor for a business, and I think it's legally complicated. Indemnification becomes a little more complicated, and finding individuals that want that sort of relationship on a short-term basis with some of those complications becomes complicated. So I'm thinking one of the things that needs to happen is that maybe more engagement, more robust conversations need to be had with firms that might be in that situation to understand what barriers they view as they think through that possibility. I think it's a real viable option, but I think that there are some complications that maybe haven't been addressed. And then not to mention all the statute, all the regulations, all of that sort of thing. And like, you know, who's going to be signing off on the experience form? And it's going to be, oh, this guy worked there for one job for 150 hours, signing off for the firm's future to do all the attest engagements, and then that individual is gone. That's not in itself a problem, but you can't just discount that whole you know, the concept and the optics that go with that.
I just want to make sure I understood this right. The firm that's engaging with the outside person, that firm would still have to have a licensee with an A license. Is that correct? What's to stop that firm from just having the person on staff with the A license provide the oversight?
There is a concern because of the employee-supervisor relationship that cannot be it's not an impartial type of review, sorry, can't think of a word right now, of the owner's experience. So that was the concern with that. There is nothing that prohibits that firm from conducting audits and having that individual sign it. There just are firms where the owner, the licensee, wants to convert their license. And that is really the crux of the problem, especially as we look at data and ensuring that we have the pipeline of individuals that have the attest authority versus those that do not. And do we need to establish pathways for additional individuals to get there? And I think that is why we're here today, is really trying to make sure that we have that pathway to ensure the pipeline is sufficient for, you know, our needs in terms of individuals that have that attest designation with their license.
Thank you. And I just, as I've been working on this, I know that it goes through the attorneys to look for, you know, regulatory compliance and those type of things too, to your question. So that is an ongoing thing as well, correct?
Correct. We are at the phase right now where I guess we're building a foundation, right? And we want to make sure that the foundation is firm before we go any further. And so I have no problem at all with pausing a little bit and asking a few more questions. It really doesn't bother me. We want to make sure we get this right. We don't want to invest time in writing regulations and presenting to the board if we need to have additional questions answered. There isn't like a deadline for this. This is something that is very important, and I'd hate to do something that either no one's going to do or has so much risk inherent in it that it's almost like a joke, like that who would do that, right? So we don't want to get ourselves in that situation. So I'm fine with that. If that's where we are, we can definitely give the board an update in November if they would like to hear it, and maybe they have additional questions they would like us to ask of individuals. I think Nasi, we should ensure that she is here at the next meeting. I think that she is a great individual to be a part of the conversation, partly because she is retired. She calls herself retired. I don't understand. She's a failure at retirement, but she calls herself retired. But I do believe that she still is very active, and she saw this role as being part of the engagement team. And so I think having her here instead of me trying to stumble answering the questions would also be helpful. I just want to make sure I'm reading the room correctly. So maybe we can just do a show of hands. We'll have two options. We're not going to do, you only get to vote once, okay? So option one is, we think that this foundation is fine. We can present it to the board. There's things we need to work out in terms of the language, but we're okay. Option two is, this might be okay, but we still want to do some more outreach, particularly with those firm owners who are in this situation, to make sure we're doing something that, one, they could fiscally afford, and just do some additional research. So those are going to be your two options. So if we could just do a show of hands. Option one, we have one individual that thinks we're fine just moving on, and two, we have two. Okay, option two, continue to investigate, is the majority. Okay, so that's perfectly good. Were there any specific questions that staff should take down in terms of getting them answered as we continue to do some additional research?
I might comment that if outreach is a part of the next, or is a part of the future, that CBA staff, somebody like Nasi, and that a potential firm that might be interested, in addition to a potential monitor, that all be in the room, because I think they're all going to be wearing a little different hat. And so it provides a broader perspective on the overall objective.
I think that I'm thinking along the same lines as what you just said, but just to be sure, I think outreach would include not only those who are looking to convert their license to ensure that it's feasible and palatable, but also to those who would serve as a monitor. And I would split that into populations of perhaps those who are retired and active, but also those who are employed by a firm, and whether their firm would see issue with this and what type of risk and considerations there.
Any other thoughts, discussion?
I would just like to thank all of you for engaging in a conversation about this. It's really appreciated. I like it when we can have these conversations during our meeting and get away from some of this stuff that Michael did to us at the beginning. So I appreciate it. Thank you for your honesty.
Thank you. And now we'll go to questions from the public. There are no public members, or there are no public attendees in Sacramento. So monitor, can you open up to questions from online?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I've opened up the Q&A panel. If any member of the public would like to comment, please type comment using the field in the lower right-hand corner of your screen, or simply raise your hand. We will give you a moment. All right, I see no request for comment. Shall I close the Q&A panel?
Yes, thank you, Monitor.
You're welcome.
And thank you, Ms. Benedict. We will go to item 4D, report on the results of the QC file review and the procedures for continuous file review, from Ms. Cardenas.
Thank you, Chair Williams. My name is Melissa Cardenas. I'm a coordinator in the initial licensing unit. The purpose of this agenda item is to provide the QC with the results of the file audit that took place at the July 2023 QC meeting, and to inform the members of file review procedures going forward. The July file review was performed by the 7 members in attendance. A total of 41 files were reviewed and found to be correctly approved for licensure. There were items identified that we can improve going forward that had no impact on the overall licensing outcome. The annual file review referenced in the QC manual is being amended to QC members review applications recently approved for licensure on a more regular basis. Conducting this review more frequently will create an opportunity for consistent feedback to staff that helps to reinforce correct processing procedures. Also, given the file reviews will be conducted in smaller batches, the results of the file reviews will be consolidated into a single fiscal year summary of the reviews and presented to the QC in October. This concludes my report. I will now turn it back to Chair Williams, and I'm happy to answer any questions members may have.
Thank you. Any questions from the members present? And seeing no public here in Sacramento, please open up to the public online. Moderator.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair. I have opened up the Q&A panel. If any member of the public would like to comment, please type comment using the field in the lower right-hand corner of the screen, or simply raise your hand. We are displaying instructions, and we'll give you a moment. All right, I see no request for comment. Shall I close the Q&A panel?
Yes, thank you, moderator.
You're welcome.
I will go to item number 5A, agenda items for future qualifications committee meetings. I open it up to the board members if there's anything they would like to add to the agenda for our next board meeting.
Given the feedback that Mr. Jones had, I would suggest that I provide an update on the Sure CPA project. I anticipate we'll be giving the board an update in January, and so I will schedule that on one of your future meetings following the January meeting.
Thank you. Committee members, anything?
I would like to continue to hear about efforts being made to improve the pipeline as we see the numbers and applications and renewals seem to be falling.
Thank you. We can add that, correct? Yes. Other questions, thoughts, asks? Michelle?
I just also want to kind of connect those two things a little bit. We do believe that our Sure CPA project is also part of addressing the pipeline. Of course, there's all kinds of things we can do to address the pipeline, but there is also that connection there. And while I have my mic open, just a reminder, if there are any individuals that are interested in outreach as we speak about the pipeline, please do let me know. Mr. Jones made the mistake of telling me that he enjoys doing it, and I think I really have put him to work in quite a few things. He's going to be a video star here soon, so please do let me know if that's something that you enjoy doing.
That was hard labor. What do you mean? I had a blast.
All right, thank you. There are no members of the public? Oh, sorry, Ms. Salazar.
I suppose I should ask, am I allowed to comment? I would just share, we as a group, as a profession, talk about pipeline. There is annually a report that our board works very hard on and puts together that was just presented, I believe, in September. It is a multi-year look at our licensing. So if you did not have a chance to see it, it really helps put the what are the trends in licensing into perspective. And as a board member, I found that very valuable. And so I wanted to share with you that that is a resource as well, especially as Member Honzik mentioned, it can be an issue that is now requested to be reported upon here. So I just wanted to point that out, and thank you.
Thank you. And I believe that is online. They can go to the website?
Yes, our website would have that report. It's called Long-Term Trends, I believe is the name of the item. If you want to look it up, if you can't find it, Melissa would be happy to send you the link. When we did present that item to the board, we had hoped that we would have what is called the trend report from AICPA, but it was delayed a little bit. And so we will be presenting that in November, but it is available online if that's something that interests you. It's more of a national look, but it really gives you lower in the pipeline, a look at that, because it's looking at graduates, how many people are enrolled in the program, where we don't actually have that type of information. So it's a little lower in the pipeline, if you will. So you might also want to look at that, and we're happy to start bringing that trend report that we do annually to you all and present it to you if that's something that interests you.
Great, and that would be part of the September 21st, 22nd agenda, and so that's where you could find that if you'd like to look at that, but we can definitely present that at the next meeting. Yeah? Thank you. Now, I'm going to go to the public. There's none in Sacramento. We will go to Monitor. Will you open it up for comment?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I've opened up the Q&A panel. If any member of the public would like to comment, please type comment using the field in the lower right-hand corner of the screen, or simply raise your hand. We'll give you a moment. All right, I see no requests for comment. Shall I close the Q&A panel?
Yes, please do, Monitor. Thank you.
Okay.
And before I adjourn, I would just like to say that this is kind of a mini how the CBA is, but there's actually people out there, there's people online. And you have great patience because it's something to see. But we are now adjourned.